Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. So today we have nearly 1,200 ounces of silver out on the table, 1,200 ounces, plus a gram of gold and 1 ounce of platinum. This is of course the produce of that unboxing which I put out yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, it's probably the best place to start. I'll put a link down in the description below. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different. So previous group orders, I've just done a bit of a grand tour of what people have been ordering, and I'm going to do that to a certain extent today. But I also wanted to present a devil's advocate argument as to why buying this much silver is actually probably not a great idea. Now I know a lot of you out there will have strong thoughts and opinions on this, and I personally actually think that silver is a pretty good buy at the moment and that it's well worth looking at as a investment. But I also wanted to present some of the devil's advocate arguments as to why buying this much might not be a sound strategy going forward. Of course, it's going to vary from person to person and everybody's going to have different opinions on this. I would love it for you to comment down in the comment section, but please be respectful of mine and other people's views and opinions as well. Now, with that said, what do I mean? Well, I did a video about a month ago talking about maybe some of the reasons you wouldn't want to be buying silver generally at the moment, and that was talking about the sort of manipulated markets, and also if you were a new stacker and perhaps you've been watching a lot of these videos that say silver's a get-rich-quick scheme, or it's going to shoot the moon very quickly, $1,000 an ounce silver. That's all just fairy tale stuff. That's, in my opinion, very unlikely to happen. But today I want to focus on more of the fact that this is just a giant pile of silver. Now here's a little breakdown of what everybody's ordered. You can have a look at that in your own time. But there's an awful lot of silver on this table. You know, we've got anything from sort of big 10-ounce Queen's Beast coins. We've got the Griffin here, which looks absolutely sublime in all its glory there. The 10-ounce Griffin, always popular, and the 10-ounce Dragon as well. And I'm going to be featuring these in their own little video on Sunday. I have plans to lay them out all on the table and have a good old look at them. So they are very cool. But they are very heavy. They are 10-ounce coins, and with everything else that's combined on this table, there's an awful lot of weight, and that's where I want to start. So 1,200 ounces seems like a lot of silver, and it's worth worth £20,000. That'd probably be what, $27,000, something like that. That's an awful lot of money. Of course it is, and I'm not saying that it's not. But if you're stacking even on a modest budget over 10 years, you're going to achieve this. This is what your stack will look like in 10, 15 years, even on a modest budget of £150 a month or $200 a month. That is not out of the realms of possibility for a lot of people to be able to save that kind of money in silver. So maybe if you're not diversifying your investments, it'll be a lot sooner. Or if you're a bigger budgeted stacker, if you've got a larger budget and you're stacking 100 ounces a month, this is what your stack will look like in 1 year, not even 10 years. So that's kind of my first case for you, really, why I think silver is not necessarily a great buy, because you're going to have so much of it over time, and it's going to weigh an awful lot. And one of the main kind of theories of why silver is meant to be so good, and why I hear why silver is meant to be so good, I watch a lot of videos out there on YouTube, and I know there's going to be a difference in kind of cultural opinion from US stackers to UK stackers, but a lot of you out there will stack silver as a kind of go-to metal for that, that kind of apocalyptic or collapse type situation where the dollar has collapsed, and so here we go, here's an eagle. So the dollar will collapse, and then people will have US silver eagles, and that will then become the currency. That will become the barter exchange currency of choice in that kind of post-economic collapse world. And that's all fine and good, but if you've got, let's say, a very large stack, say you've got a couple of 1,000 ounces of silver, that's going to weigh an awful lot. In that kind of situation where the dollar has completely collapsed and everybody's running around like headless chickens, panicking and rioting, looting, all of that kind of thing's going on. If you need to bug out, how are you going to pick up 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 ounces of silver? It is not going to be easy to do. It's certainly not going to be quick to do, whereas gold is obviously 80 times more valuable than silver at the moment, so you can store a lot more wealth in your gold and potentially in your platinum as well. It is an interesting thing to think about. If you are stacking for that future kind of collapse situation or apocalyptic style situation, I don't say that's a bad thing. It's a good thing to be prepared, but also have a think about what you're going to do in that kind of apocalyptic scenario. How are you going to move this much silver? Because when this silver arrived, when this giant box arrived, I could barely lift it, and this is just 1,200 ounces. So you're going to need help. You're either going to need help or be a complete amazing bodybuilding bench lifter to be able to lift out your silver very quickly. So that's something to very much think about. The next thing is that 1,200 ounces of silver here. You can see it takes up quite a lot of space. Volume-wise, it is a large pile of silver. Underneath here, we've got, if you can even see them, we've got row upon row of the Oriental Border Britannia. So this coin here, which is one of the most popular coins in the order. In fact, from that big sheet, you can see it is right at the top of the list. It is the most popular item. They take up a lot of space. Certainly coins in capsules do anyway. So if you've got all of these Oriental Border Britannias which you've been investing in, if you've been buying them, they take up a lot more space than a roll of 25 coins would, for example, or a bunch of these 10-ounce coins would. So it's something to think about, space-wise. How are you going to store it? Where are you going to store it? That's going to be an interesting thing. If you have a giant safe, if you have perhaps a huge gun safe if you're in the US, or if you're in the UK, you have a giant, huge safe, that's fine. And to some extent, the weight of the silver will protect that safe as well, because if it's got 100 kilos worth of silver in it and it's an already 100 kilo safe, that's a 200 kilo object which somebody's not just going to come in and pick up and take away with them. But at the same time, having this much silver kind of forces you to have a safe, because you can't hide it around the house, whereas a tiny little piece of gold here, this is minuscule. You can hide this pretty much anywhere you like. You can get really creative with your hiding spaces as well, and that's a really, in fact, I think that that's a much more secure way of storing your precious metals, in a very secure, interesting hiding space, rather than in a giant safe, because a giant safe just is it's like a magnet to wealth. It's a magnet to, you need to open me because I've got value inside me. So if you are unlucky enough to have your house burgled and somebody finds that huge giant safe, and let's say you live a little bit more remotely than others, they're maybe just going to come back later on that day with an angle grinder and get inside your safe, or it's just not necessarily the best thing to do. But if you have maybe just a small lockbox as a decoy, and then you've hidden all of your gold around the house or something, it's a lot easier to hide £20,000 worth of gold. £20,000 worth of gold would be 20 of these size coins. You can hide that incredibly easily around a house. By the way, this is the Nui Island Turtle 1 ounce. I showed recently the 2 ounce one on In Focus Friday, and these 1 ounce ones came as part of the group order. Really love them. Very nice indeed. It's nice to see one which is all brand new and clean as well, because the one that I showed was all dirty and had loads of fingerprint marks on it. So yeah, that's one thing to think about. If you're going to have this much, how are you going to store it? It's probably going to be quite difficult to store. If you are going to be stacking for 20 plus years buying this much silver, you're going to have to future-proof. Are you going to have to buy a giant safe up front? Is it going to be insured enough in 10 years time, 20 years time? So all of these things to think about. And buying a really heavy duty giant safe is going to cost an awful lot of money if you're going to buy it up front anyway, to save something like £100,000 worth of silver over time. So the last thing I want to talk about though is milk spotting. And whilst this is not a milk spotted coin, the Queen's Beast series have been known to be quite milky, certainly the 2 ounce silver ones. Queen's Beast Bull, by the way, one of the most popular items here. It came, if we look on the list, 6th, I think. Yes, there you go, 6th on the list. Rather interestingly, the Perth Mint seems to have done very well in the representation of orders in this particular order. Anyway, back to the topic in hand, milk spots. A lot of this is in coin form. In fact, all of this is in coin form, if you think about it. The bars, I suppose, are bars technically, but they're also coins technically. But these are all going to potentially be prone to milk spotting or tarnishing, and that's a really important thing, because over here in the UK, we pay VAT and tax on coins. When we buy through group orders like this, we reduce that, but you're still paying a premium on your silver, because just that's the way it goes in the European Union. Unfortunately, you do end up paying taxes in one way or another, whether it's on the dealer's profit or import duties into the EU itself. So ultimately, you have to pay a little bit of tax. And that means that we end up with coins rather than bars, most commonly, because that's what we buy. And some of the culprits, the biggest culprits out there for milk spotting, the Canadian coins, for example, will most likely milk spot over time or tarnish over time. And then that will lead to them being worth essentially just spot value, or maybe ever so slightly above spot value. So you're putting a lot of money into these coins in premiums, and the cheapest silver ounce that you can buy in the UK is probably like 30% over spot, but in the EU it's probably, with shipping, maybe 15, maybe 16% over spot value. So that is quite considerably more than the probably 2% that you can buy gold at the moment, maybe 3% with shipping for gold, and platinum as well. I guess is an element of hedging that as well. We'll talk about the platinum coins in the next video, but in terms of premiums, silver is just a killer. It really is. So if you're buying this much, in sort of metal value, and if you think about it, got £20,000 worth here, and if 15% of that is just value over the price of silver in premiums alone, and shipping and all of that, it adds up to quite a large amount. So 15% of £20,000, that's like £3,000 worth. You could have an extra 3 ounces of gold by not doing the same thing. Now, of course, I know that the silver to gold ratio is very much in silver's favour at the moment, but at the same time, it's something to think about. If you have all of your eggs in the basket and you put all of that money in there, which is something I would never recommend you do, it might be worth thinking about buying gold instead of silver. Certainly if you're trying to invest larger sums of money, it's probably better to be looking at gold rather than silver. So that's kind of all I have to really say on it. I do think silver is a good investment ultimately. There are some negatives to it. It does inform my own buying strategy going forward, and I do think that having investing in the gold, which I'm currently investing in, is a good source of pension funds for me in the future in 20-30 years time. And if I was doing the same kind of budgeting for silver for that amount of time, I would have a similar size stack of silver to contend with, and I don't feel that that's really right for me. It might be right for you though, and I appreciate that and I understand that. So that is pretty much all of the devil's advocate side of things I want to present. I think this is a fantastic pile of silver regardless of how I feel about what it looks like, and that's probably because the majority of this isn't mine, and once it's all packaged up I'll only be left with a couple of 10-ounce dragon coins and a few of these little 1-ounce coins and the 2 dragon coins. So ultimately it's just water off a duck's back for me because I'm unboxing 1,200 ounces, but I'm not having to keep it. But it would be interesting to know what you guys think. Have you thought about it? Have you factored that into your buying strategy? Please do comment down below. If you like this video, please put a thumbs up on it. Now, if you didn't like what I've been talking about, the actual topic of what I've been talking about, that's fine. But if you like the way I presented it, please do put a thumbs up on the video regardless. And if you would like to hear the opposite side of this argument, why I think that silver is a really good buy at the moment, and I think that this 1,200 ounces of silver represents very good buying strategies from Silver Forum members, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. That video will be coming out on Saturday. Otherwise, that's all I have to say. I wish you all a fantastic weekend ahead. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.